We are live. What is up, swimmers and swammers? Welcome to another episode of the SwimSwam Breakdown. As always, I'm your host, Coleman Hodges, coming to you from Brooklyn, New York, joined by my fellow Brooklynite, Sophie Kaufman, as well as Brendan Burns, the Dirty Double himself from outside Philadelphia. Thanks for joining, guys. Hope you had a great holiday weekend. We have a lot to discuss. There's some wild news on the swimming horizon, some wild news that took place last week. We're getting started with the enhanced games. I know a lot of people have a lot of opinions about this, but a lot happened last week. While Sophie and I were on the breakdown last week, we had some breaking news, some of which was true, some of which was not so true, but the enhanced games soon after made a big announcement, which included the dates for the first enhanced games. They're going to be in Las Vegas in a year from now at the end of May. Also announced Brett Hawk is a head coach of the enhanced games. Also announced Christian Gkolomeev, and we already knew James Magnuson are two athletes at the forefront of the enhanced games. And we saw Christian a 1 hour documentary that laid out these two athletes' journey to, trying to get under the 50 free world record that has stood since 2009, held by Cesar Cielo at 20.91. Christian Gkolomeev did that. He swam a 20.89. That was 2 weeks into a cycle of PEDs, and that was with a full body super suit. But we also now know that I don't want to say there's some legitimacy, but the enhanced games is it's here. It has been announced. We know when the first date is, and it is supporting and putting money in athletes' pockets in some form and giving them incentives, right? And I think that's a bigger deal than maybe arguing about the legitimacy or the impact this might have on sport. So the question I want to propose is, do you think we will start seeing more and more athletes, especially towards the end of their career, try to elongate their career in the pool, and obviously specifically swimmers, much like we did with the ISL? A lot of athletes use the ISL as a way to stay in the sport. They could swim shorter events. They could make money from it, right? And as well, they could be on a team. They could have a whole different experience than just international racing and swimming as we know it today. So I'm curious if you think we're going to see more athletes going to the enhanced games, as we've already seen a few do, to continue their pursuit of sport. Sophie or Brendan, I'll throw this one to you first.
I'd like to say that I hope I don't see it without spiraling into too many feelings or the legitimacy of the enhanced games. I think the point that I like to focus on is that I'm just upset that this kind of controversial method of swimming post like a real career is getting a lot of financial backing instead of actually putting that money towards real swimming and clean swimming. So I think for me, it's just really upsetting that this I guess grift of movement is really gaining hold in our sport, and it's just a little bit upsetting that so many kind of controversial figures have taken to it, and it's just drawn a lot of opinions, some of which are valid, some of which maybe not so much, and it's just a really interesting point in our sport. And why have integrity when you can sell your soul? And for some of the athletes, I can't really blame them. I mean, $1 million is way more money than Christian Gkolomeev probably would have ever seen in the clean version of something that we have currently. So I guess
his whole career.
For his whole career, exactly. So I can't really blame him for trying to make that money and set himself up for the future. But at the same time, it's just a shame that he really compromised what was a great career, and he'll always be associated with this movement now.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Also, again, he was 2 weeks into his PED cycle, and then he put on a full bodysuit, and it's like, maybe he could have put on a full bodysuit and then done it without the PEDs. Sophie, go ahead.
Yeah, well, that's the part that I mean, there's a lot about this whole thing that I don't understand, and maybe that's largely because I don't agree with a lot of what's going on here. But like, I don't want to get too in the weeds. Like, this is not part of the question, an answer to the question that you asked. But like, the idea that like in the enhanced games, like slogan is like pushing the human body as far as you can go, or like reaching the full height of human potential. and then you're going to put on the full body suit that we all banned because it was helping. It was like swimming the race, not swimming the race for the athletes, but they banned it because of the buoyancy issues, and that it wasn't like clean, I guess. Like there's whatever,
Right.
but
it's not the human body.
yeah. So to like
Is
put
their
that
slogan
on
not
top
applicable
of
to
your
clean
slogan,
swimming
like
as well?
doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
But to get back to your question, like I do agree with a lot of what Brendan said, and I think that like you may see it as a way of swimmers like elongating the amount of time they can make money in this sport, and certainly spike the amount of money that they can make. $1 million isn't something that is widely accessible for a lot of these professional athletes to make, at one meet or even over the course of their professional career. But there is still so many questions that we have about the enhanced games, even with what we already know, that is also still prompting questions that like, I think the word career is like pretty generous to use with the enhanced games.
Yeah.
Another point I'd like to bring up is that I feel that I can just kind of see right through this. If you go to the Enhanced Games website, they mentioned that they're selling a line of their supplements and potentially even their own brand of performance enhancing drugs, which is just a pretty classic online grifter move of having a really flashy, gimmicky movement and then immediately profiting off of it. And I think it's very of the times we're in, I think.
Yeah, agreed. And I think several people have kind of alluded to like they're just trying to sell supplements here, or like that's their end game. It is really bizarre to have this, oh, we're reinventing the Olympics by our product line. It, as you said, Brendan, it does seem fairly of the time. It's also, I don't think I've heard anyone ask the question of why didn't these people just put money into clean sport instead of doing this whole thing if they weren't trying to profit, right? If they are trying to actually push the boundaries of human potential or human limits. It's like I don't know that I necessarily have a huge issue with like, well, if people want to do this, I guess go ahead, especially because the money is there. But it does suck for people who are in clean sport now that it's like, oh, why isn't this money being put into the sport that we're working so hard to do rather than, a sport that is clearly, by a lot of our measures cheating.
To play a little bit of devil's advocate, what does it say about the structure of our current clean sport of swimming as we know it that these investors felt more compelled to invest in this kind of controversial movement than to invest in the actual sport itself? I think that's to play a little bit of spin zone there. I think that says a lot about where the current state of clean swimming is at as well.
Agreed. And I hope that we could bring some of that money into swimming. And I think talking with, some people behind the scenes, I think there is that money in swimming, or there are people, you can find former swimmers in every facet of life, that have had success and that have made money and that are ready to support swimming. Maybe not tech billionaires or tech disruptors who just want to throw $1 million if you break a world record, and have that kind of money to bankroll an operation such as the enhanced games. But I think at the grassroots level and up, you could find money in swimming to make it a lot more innovative and a lot more interesting. I think I'm with you guys. I hope this doesn't become a huge avenue for athletes to transition to later in their career or earlier in their career. We saw a Bulgarian swimmer who's 21 years old who is now going to the enhanced games. And to be fair, he's already been to 2 Olympics. He's had pretty successful swimming career up to this point, but at 21 years old at your athletic peak to transition to something that I think the biggest concern for a lot of people is that medically is fairly unknown, and we don't know the long-term health effects things like this could have moving forward on your body. And so, to see a 21-year-old guy be pursuing that it isn't a great look to me, and doesn't say a lot about, again, as you said, Brendan, the current state of our sport and of swimming. So I understand why people are upset at SwimSwam for covering the enhanced games, but I don't think we can't cover it because it is a part of our world sport now. I'm not saying it's a legitimate one, but it's certainly interesting to see how it progresses. And I hope we can bring some of that money that is being fired off for the enhanced games into swimming. I do think it's a pretty damning thing when you see the best swimmer in the world comment on the enhanced games saying this is sad, which is what Leon Marchand did. If anyone listening wasn't aware, that's not a great look for the enhanced games. And it was honestly a little rewarding for me as a swim fan to see.
If anything, it's very comforting to see that a good majority of the world's upper pantheon of swimming have kind of dismissed this to the side. No one's really taken a huge hold on it. They've kind of dismissed it as irrelevant. And I think that's, that isn't a very concrete outcome of it, but it's definitely something in the way of helping it out.
Mm-hmm. Any other final thoughts on the enhanced games, on all the news we've seen from it this last week, or thoughts moving forward on it before we move on to our next topic? Yeah. So speaking of innovations in clean sport today, let's talk about this new NCAA format proposal. The CSCAA, the College Swimming Coaches Association of America, sent in to the NCAA. It is a pretty sweeping reform of the NCAA championships as we know it now. It's adding stroke 50s, obviously to react to the fact that the stroke 50s will be in the LA 2028 Olympic Games. But it is a lot more than that. Just to give a couple cliff notes of this proposal, we'll see stroke 50s. There's no indication that that athletes will get more than 3 individual events because of that. B finals will be in the afternoon. A finals will be in the evening. The diving finals will be divided into 2 blocks with 3 rounds in each block. There will be a new team diving event. The award ceremonies will take place at the end of each final session, not at the end of each event. The 1650 will be on day 1, along with the 2 medley and 8 free relays. There will be a morning, afternoon, and evening session for all of those. So it'll be like 16 and above in the morning, 9 to 16 afternoon, 1 through 8 in the final or at night. And there'll also be a revised qualification model where the CSCAA is, they're advocating dropping the A and B cuts, and just having a single qualification standard. So a lot there. What are you guys' thoughts on this new model, but also just the fact that, the CSCAA is trying to instill some change in the NCAA championship format? Sophie, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I think the idea that they are proposing something different and proposing what is a pretty radical change is exciting. That's something that we've been talking about in a variety of formats on this breakdown for a while. So it's exciting to see that, that those discussions are also happening, like within the bodies that can be the engines for that change. Us talking on the breakdown isn't going to make the NCAA changes format, but this is like a pretty radical push to do that. I have mixed feelings about a lot of aspects of this model. There is a lot there. And some of it is, I think, a stronger proposal than others. Like I am not against adding the stroke 50s, but I think at the same time, in one of the current proposed schedule changes, you'd see them all go back to back, which feels like a weird thing because you would feel like a lot of the people who would be interested in the stroke 50s would want to compete more than one. And then there's also the issue of like adding adding events for swimmers. Are they going to be stuck with the 3 individual events only if they want to swim on 4 of the 5 relays, or 5 relays and 2 individual events? Like there's still a lot of questions, and I think that we also like need to think about like what is driving these changes. Like, is the goal just that we want to get the championship final session down to 75 minutes, right? And like, are we doing like, we've been talking a lot about ways to grow the sport and make swimming more interesting and move along, but like, what is the cost of those decisions? Like, are coaches now going to be at the pool all day? Are swimmers going to be at the pool all day? If you're a swimmer who makes a B final, but is also needed for a top 8 relay and you've swum prelims, you're at the pool from 8 to 8, basically. Like, doesn't feel like a model that will yield the best results for athletes too. So I think the drive for change is good, and that this will start a conversation that hopefully we can test some of these proposals out and see what will work the best as a combination of like helping to grow the sport and also like not sacrificing like athlete or coaches' well-being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Brendan, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with most of what Sophie said. I think the biggest thing is that I commend the CSCA for at least sparking a debate over how we should change the NCAA championship going forward. I think that shows a lot of growth on their part in terms of being proactive on getting ready for the 50s of stroke being included in the home Olympics in Los Angeles and trying to help grow the sport and grow interest towards it. I think there's so many facets to these changes that I can't wholeheartedly say whether I totally agree or totally disagree. I will say that I'm a huge fan of the team diving event. I think that if we want to talk about saving the sport of diving, this is a huge step towards that. And as someone that was very fortunate to have swum at 4 NCAA championships, I think the logistical challenges of having those flighted final sessions are very, very real. And as someone that might have probably been someone who would have had to swim in both, I can't imagine how unbelievably difficult that may be. So that's something that probably should be tweaked into the future. But the additions of the 50s of stroke, I'm totally in for. The team diving event, I'm totally in for. I'm not totally opposed to flighting the relays, having the top 8 swim at night, and then the 9 through last seed swim in the morning. I think that could be interesting and really exciting. And then also the award ceremony moving towards the end. I think that could be good or bad. It's good because you can kind of just do a nice big media package towards the end of all the champions getting together, but then also, as someone, again, who has swam at a couple NCAA championships, having that awards break in between the events was a part of our scheduling and a part of our recovery time. Mm-hmm. So that would be a new challenge going forward. But, nothing's been set in stone yet. I think it's a great conversation starter, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this shapes up in the future.
Yeah, I mean, Brendan, as your nickname entails, I think we'd see a lot less doubles, right, from athletes in this event order and lineup. Again, you kind of have those 2 diving breaks in the sessions, but there's not in this format, there would be no award breaks, which would
also in the proposed format, it's also a 4.5 day meet, right?
I think it's a 4 day, like it's a pretty full 4 day meet.
Okay. Yeah. So that kind of eliminates the need for doubles, which honestly, I'll say it. That's okay. That's fine. 2 200s in 1 day, prelims, finals. That's fine. You want to split them up between days. That's okay with me. That's fine.
Yeah. I mean, I was reading some of the comments on this as well. And I am, it's a 3.5 day meet as at present. In this schedule, it's a 4 day meet. Like, at that point, why not make it a 5 day meet? I guess. It seems like it could be a little more spread out. And I am a little leery of those prelim afternoon, evening 3 sessions a day, just because even if for a 4 day meet for coaches, that's a lot. I mean, you basically don't leave the pool, but also for fans, right? For parents, and for what makes the NCAA so electric, I think, is the cheering sections, is the fans. We want to make this a fan-friendly event. And for those diehard fans who are going to 3 sessions and trying to cheer and scream their heads off 4 days straight, that's a lot. But at the same time, I also see how it could be really cool to have a really compact final session and maybe make that a little more fan friendly for the non-diehard swim fans who might just want to pop in for a final schedule or final session and just see top 8 races, boom, 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 boom. Again, maybe akin to the ISL where it's 75, 90, 120 minutes, and then you're out. Kind of like a dual meet. I like change. I think change is good. You know, if we had a perfect championship format, if we had, an NCAA bracket tournament, March Madness that everyone loved, that everyone worked, I'd say we don't need to change it. But at present, college swimming's on the chopping block. I think changes need to be made. I like that they proposed something. I don't think it's perfect, but I think it's worth trying some iteration of this because I think stroke 50s would be great. I don't know why they just throw the 100 IM in there as well. I think the 1,000.
Seriously, a lot of the stroke 50 dialogue has been how distance swimming is going to be thrown out the window if you add the 1,000 to the NCAA championship meet, like it's been at the Ivy League championships, like it's at the Division II, and I believe the Division III level. That would help a lot, I think.
It's also interesting because we now have the 800 and 1,500 for both men and women in the Olympics. So
right.
But then if we're adding all these events, like, is it too much? I don't know. But I think so many people want to see the 100 IM as well. And again, if we make it a 5-day meet, I don't really see the problem. But I really like that they're trying something new. I think a lot of college swimmers are going to be really happy that these stroke 50s are added as events. We're going to see a lot of new records. We're going to see a lot of fastest of all times. I also just really like switching the event lineup because I think then we will see a lot of newer records happen at NCAA championships. If the 200 fly is on day 1, I don't think that's going to be the case, but or on day 2.
It's still last.
I think we're going to see those times drop, just like we saw when we got timed finals for relays added. And so I think it's good to switch it up. Like, no one's going 17-6 anytime soon. Jordan Crooks didn't do it. Josh might, but it's like, sure, put the 50 free on the last day, give it some breathing room for a while. Cause I don't think anyone's going to touch it anyway. But I enjoy seeing that parity, and I enjoy seeing, different people get a shot at different events first, because I do think that will move the events that we already have established forward as well. Okay. Any other thoughts on this new NCAA format? I mean, this is just a proposition. We obviously don't know if it's going to be accepted. I bet it will. But what it's actually going to look like, there would also be a 1-year implementation runway. So we wouldn't actually see this until 2027. But hopefully changes coming soon. All right. On to USA Swimming and the national team. I got to sit down with Greg Meehan last week, talk about his vision for the national team as the new national team director. And we had a lot of news come out in terms of just how that vision is playing out so far. We talked about Pan Pacs being selected from the results this year. Last week, it was also announced that Braden Holloway of NC State is going to be the only head coach for the World Championships. So I'm curious what you guys think, if it's better to have just a single head coach for a big meet like this versus having a head coach for the men and a head coach for the women. Brendan, I'll go to you first on this one.
Yeah, I think there's pros and cons to having one versus having two. I will say that I think Braden's a great coach, and I think he's a great fit for heading up this World Championship team in the year post-Olympics, where a lot of the coaches from last year's Olympic staff are probably looking for a summer off, summer with their family. I think it's great that they selected a coach who coaches a combined program. So he's used to dealing with both men and women and their individual challenges and needs for maximum performance. And I think that there's really pros and cons to having more or less coaches on the staff. Less coaches means kind of less cooks in the kitchen in a sense. There's less decisions.
Won't be less coaches.
Okay.
Just one head coach.
Right. Okay. But there'll still be the normal amount of assistant coaches and everything in that regard.
Well, I think there'll be the same. Greg made a point.
It adds a slot for an assistant coach to be selected out of nationals.
My apologies. Yeah. Well, in that case, then, I think not a ton will change. And I think that Braden's a great pick for it. So apologies on that part.
All good. Sophie, thoughts on this format?
Yeah, I'm really interested in it. We're talking about lots of different changes that are happening in swimming this year and right now. And I think that this is like a relatively low stakes year to try something new. I think that like Greg Meehan on the podcast and also like in the letter that he sent out to USA swimming coaches that was included in the article is like pretty transparent that like they're testing this out, right? Like they want to see what it actually looks like. It doesn't mean that this is what it is going to look like going forward, but it's also interesting the ways that this is also going to change some of the like coaching decisions that are made for like World University Games and World Junior Championships. Like he said, like Braden Holloway is going to be the head coach, but there's also going to be a member from the national team staff of USA Swimming at least one at each of the major championships this year, from World Championships to World Juniors and World University Games. So I think that change is good, and it's like a good time to try these things out. And it's also like a pretty strong statement from this like new look national team about like where their priorities are and like what they are interested in kind of like growing. And I think that like the points that got made about, this is like a chance for new coaches to like gain some experience or step into a role they might not have had previously. And like Brendan was talking about, like gives the more established coaches who, who were the head coaches of the Olympic team last year, like a chance to like have a breather because they've been kind of going between like the Olympic responsibilities and the NCAA season.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I think in my conversation with Greg, one thing he really emphasized is establishing a team first culture with the national team and with USA Swimming. And I feel like having one head coach will probably do that. Or I guess we'll see if that happens. I mean, I know on college teams, it can go either way, having a combined program versus having separate programs and establishing cultures in that way. But I think for USA Swimming, you have 3 weeks together on a national team, maybe between training camps and the actual competition. That's like a really short time to establish a culture of your own. And obviously there's already precedents set from previous trips and just from USA Swimming in general. But I feel like having one singular voice to say like, hey, this is our goal. Like, this is what we're doing. This is how we're going to do it is probably helpful. I think it's a great time to test it. Low stakes year. This World Championships is not, the end all be all for US certainly. But I also think that gives, again, the other assistant coaches a lot more room to work with their athletes and to pay attention to specific athletes or specific group of athletes, and gives the one head coach that reign to just kind of oversee it all. And I think that will give more athletes more attention, but also put the team in a good place because you have that one person who's making sure that everything's kind of moving in the right direction. It seemed like there might have been some complaints or, some rumblings from last year about coaches just focusing on certain athletes or focusing on their athletes. And again, it seems like with this, that wouldn't be as much of an issue. Greg also discussed, and I'm just kind of curious on you guys' thoughts on this, like for an Olympic team, for the head coach being selected maybe based again, not based on how many athletes they qualify, but how well they're going to lead. And I think that has happened in the past as well. But I really like that idea because, again, the head coach shouldn't probably be focused on just a few athletes. They should be the ones who are steering the ship, not being in charge of specific athletes or worrying about them. But yeah, I think I like this decision. I'm excited to see how it goes. And I think it's funny that we get a new national team director. He implements change. He's doing things that he thinks will help in the Olympic run up, and our commenters still just take a dump on him. So it's a hard role to be in. Greg's got thick skin, so I'm not worried, but the irony of that is not lost on me. Any more thoughts from either of you on this topic? All right. Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward. And we'll see how it goes this summer. We got trials in just next week. Sheesh.
Next week.
Next week.
Oh my God.
Trials next week. We got to do a preview podcast soon. But yeah. So that's our news for the week. We're going to finish up with a few sinker swims. First off, everybody's favorite, Michael Andrew swam a really fast 25-yard freestyle. He went 8.56, and I don't care who you are or what kind of swimming you like. If you can't appreciate that for what it is, I can't help you, because that's really fast. He broke the Arizona State touchpad record for a 25 freestyle, and Arizona State has seen some serious speed in the Mona Plummer waters. So that's pretty great. After this 25 free and after missing the 2024 Olympic Games in Paris, do you see Michael Andrew getting back on the U.S. national team for the Singapore World Championships this summer? Sophie.
Yeah, I do. Not because this 25-yard freestyle is any strong indicator to me of that, but just because we'll do the preview. There will be a preview pod, but the men's breaststroke field is not the deepest one that the United States has ever seen. Michael Andrew will come into this meet as with one of the longest resumes of anybody in that field. I'm not sure that he'll be able to get it done in the 100 breaststroke, but he's got such a big lead in the 50 breaststroke this season that it would be a shock if he didn't finish in the top two. And plus, with USA Swimming updating its selection procedures to make stroke 50s a priority one, he won't be left off of the team if he wins the 50 breaststroke because of how the selection procedures are going to break out. So he'll be on the world's team this summer.
Brendan?
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to sound like a broken record with Sophie. I agree. It's not because of the 25 free. It's because the 50 is going to be priority one this year, and he's going to find his way to get on the team in at least one, if not multiple. So I don't know if he'll make the 100 breaststroke. He could very well easily have a great taper with the Arizona State guys and make the 100 breaststroke, but he will be in at least one event on the World Championship team.
I'm swimming it for the same reasons. I think he'll have a bounce back here. I think he's rejuvenated with the move to ASU, with the fact that stroke 50s are now in the Olympics in 2028. I'm guessing he's got at least somewhat of a new lease on life in his sport. So I like his chances. Surprise sinker swim, because I don't know if we talked about this. Do you sink or swim the fact that USA Swimming made stroke 50s a priority one and are now we now might not see any relay only swimmers on the women's, especially on the men's side, given the doubles that we'll see because stroke 50s are now ahead of those number 5 and 6 relay swimmers. Brendan?
I mean, I swim it. I agree that 50s should be priority one now that they're Olympic events. I hope that World Aquatics or the Olympics comes out and adjusts the roster numbers in the future, but as of right now, that's not the case. So I swim it. I agree.
Sophie?
Yeah, I swim it as well. It's in the Olympics. You got to take them seriously now, whether you like it or not. And I think that, for the U.S., especially as they're heading into a home Olympics, maybe the U.S. men even more so than the women, right? Like you have to take these events seriously and put your swimmers in a position to succeed in those events, like at the Olympics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think to me it's about time, and I know I don't want to get deep in the weeds in this, but big swim for me. I'm really excited. We're prioritizing these 50s of stroke, especially in a world championship year. Obviously we will now in the Olympic year too, but it's like take people in the 50s. I really like to see it. And I really like the fact that may force, especially on the men's side, some of those 50 athletes or 200 athletes or whatever to go and swim in a prelims relay. And we might see some people swim events that they didn't qualify in or that we haven't seen them swim yet. And I want to see them swim it. I want to see someone who is there for a 50 fly do 100 free on the prelims relay. Or whatever the case may be. I think that's really exciting. I think it forces people to, get outside their comfort zone and just race and not necessarily have an agenda for, okay, this is how I'm going to do my prelims, do my semi. It's like, no, you just got to race for Team USA and go fast. So I'm excited for people to be put in that position as well.
We're one of the few nations on earth that really overwhelmingly puts a lot of emphasis on versatility in swimming, and now it's time to put our money where our mouth is.
Precisely, yeah, and so I'm excited to see that aspect of the stroke 50s being prioritized play out as well. Next up on Sink or Swim, another athlete who had a great swim this time, actually in long course, Leah Shackley. 58.5 in the 100 back after just a breakout freshman season at the NCAA at NC State. 58.5 is no joke. She obviously has stiff competition starting in her home training pool. In that women's 100 back in the US is never easy to qualify in, but I think she's got a few options. 100 fly is perhaps even stiffer competition for her, but it's an event she looked good in this summer. This spring, 200 back. I'm guessing she might swim that as well. So there are a few windows for Miss Shackley to make this World Championships team, and obviously, if she doesn't make that team, we got World University Games this summer as well, where she could go and shine at her first senior international meet. But sink or swim, Leah Shackley makes the World Championship team. Sophie?
Sink. You kind of laid out the reasons for me. Like, I'm sorry, but she will be a factor in the final. Like she will be in multiple finals and will challenge for a world championship spot. I think she gets on the World University Games team, easily in multiple events. But I think that the world's team right now is kind of a step too far, in the backstroke. This is kind of Regan Smith and Catherine Burkhoff's chance to shine, race to lose. They've both been under 58 seconds before, and have both looked good this season too. So I think that they will do their thing in the sprint 50s and in the sprint backstroke events. And I think Shackley will have a great performance at World University Games.
Brendan?
I'm going to sink it. Unfortunately, she's a great young talent. I'll swim her though. Let's go sink or swim over under 4.5 gold medals for Leah Shackley at World University Games. I'm taking the over.
Perhaps that's a better one. Yeah, I'm 4.5.
Including relays?
She can go.
Yeah, including relays.
Oh, over, yeah. Okay.
I love that we're already going to wugs. Yeah, I mean, I want to swim it. I put this in here because I just wanted to highlight that really good swim from Leah Shackley, 58.5. Again, no joke, especially in season and 2 weeks out, week and a half out from trials. It's I think she's gonna have an upset. Have a great performance. I'm not gonna say she's gonna upset Burkhoff or Regan Smith or Tori Husker, Gretchen Walsh in the 50 or 100 fly. Maybe Tori Husk doesn't swim the 50 fly. Maybe she gets second behind Gretchen in the 50 fly and makes the world's team that way. I think, or maybe she gets second in the 200 back. I don't know. I think there's some avenues for her to make a world's team, but I'll sink it for now. 5 gold medals, why not? Yeah, wugs. I think I think she's getting international swimming experience this summer, wherever it comes from, and I think her trajectory is going up. So I'll go over. All right. Next up on Sink or Swim. This is kind of a fun one. Chinese nationals just ended. Haven't seen World U.S. trials obviously yet, but China is looking like they're coming to play in Singapore. They had a great trials. They had a lot of standout swims from young swimmers, from really young swimmers, from their vets. They look great coming off of this Olympic Games and coming into an Asian World Championships. So, who wins more individual golds in Singapore? Not relay, just individual golds. China or the USA? In 2023 Worlds, for context, the U.S. won 5 gold medals and China won 4. Sophie, what do you think?
I think it's the U.S. I think it'll be close, but I still think the U.S. will have more individual golds, mostly because of the strength of the U.S. women. You know, there's a pretty clear path for them to, if 5 is the benchmark that's going to have the most individual gold at the meet, there's a pretty clear way for them to get to 5 without breaking a sweat. Like, yes, there are some races that could break the wrong way, but it's a much clearer path, I think, especially it's a much clearer path to more individual golds than China has, I think. You know, with the 12-year-old who had such a great Chinese national, she looked great. Like, but I'm on record with, we need to chill out on the junior swimmers and like let them be 12. So like, I think she'll have a great performance, but I'm not factoring her into like any individual gold medal count just yet. And I think that on, China's men, like Chin looked good, but we need to see him, I think, kind of put it together at the senior international meet. Like, we don't yet really know how that's going to go. He was fast in season before the Olympics last year, and that didn't turn out so well for him. So I'll stick with the U.S. Getting more individual golds.
Brendan?
I'm going to stick with the U.S. as well. Kind of the same reason Sophie mentioned. I think the U.S. women are going to have an all-time performance this summer. They seem ready to go. And the men also, I mean, they look pretty good. It seems like we have a great new restructuring of our national team, and I think that'll lead to great success this summer. And yeah, that's what I'm going with.
I want to say China to be contrarian, but yeah, if we break it down a little bit, Gretchen Walsh and Katie Ledecky could account for like 7 gold medals on their own, right? Between 2 swimmers, especially from after what we saw them do in Fort Lauderdale. I mean, good God. And I think on the men, I think the U.S. men are going to have a hard time winning 1 individual gold medal. Not saying they can't, but they've got their work cut out for them. Certainly. I think, in 2023, I want to say they won 1. Katie Ledecky always accounts for at least 2 gold medals. I think this year, maybe 3. But you've got Regan Smith, who always has potential on the women's side for multiple gold medals. You got Kate Douglas, who is probably good for 1 or 2. So, we're looking at 5 to 10 easily, and that's just the women's side. On the men's side, I think Chin Hai Yang gets 2 gold medals this summer between the 3 breaststrokes. In 2023, he got 3, and that was 3 of China's 4. I think Zhang Yufei in the 100 fly was their 4th one, and I don't think Zhang Yufei competed this year or at Chinese nationals, and so it's going to be hard with the addition of Russian athletes. That makes Zhu Jiayu's path to 50 or 100 backstroke gold on the men's side a lot harder because he's a world champion in the 100 back, and he could do that again. He's on form, I think. Pan Zhanle, I could give him 2 gold medals if I'm being generous. I think maybe he pops the 200 free and swims it individually as well, and I think he's everyone's favorite in the 100 free at this point. He looks sensational all season, but that's still like 5 if we're being generous. So I think it'll be a great meet. I think both China and the US will show out, but US women, man, they're looking good, so got to give it to them as well. All right, last up on Sink or Swim. After Christian Gkolomeev's 20.89 50 free swim at the Enhanced Games, not a world record, but swam under the world record, showed people it's possible in a rubberized suit with PEDs. But sometimes
Grandma had wheels, should be a bicycle.
Sometimes all it takes is to see it, no matter what form it's in. Do you think that we will see the world record, Cesar Ciela's long-standing 2009 20.91 50 free world record, legitimately get broken this summer after seeing Gkolomeev's 20.89? Brendan?
I hope it does. I mean, it's been so long at this point. It's one of the last ones standing. I think it's one of the most breakable as well on the men's side, between the 50 and the 200 free, the 200 back, and the pretty much impossible 800 free. So I don't know who's going to do it. I mean, I think Cam McAvoy, probably the favorite. He's been swimming pretty well recently. But again, it's a summer after an Olympics. It's definitely the crapshoot year of all crapshoot years. I hope to see it, but I just don't know who it's going to be.
Mm-hmm. Sophie?
Yeah, I'll swim this one. Spite is a very powerful motivator, and Cam McAvoy was one of the people who was very publicly against the Enhanced Games. And so I think, that could give him the extra push he needs. I think, we've talked about this a lot, like Brendan said, in the context of like which supersuited world record is going to be the next one to go down. And this is one of the ones that, like he said, is like the most gettable. Like, it's still a very difficult record to break and is going to take a perfect swim. But I think McAvoy is certainly capable of doing that. And we've seen him, get close to the 21-second barrier. And this can be another last bit of motivation that he needs, and he can get it done.
Yeah, I'm gonna swim in, and I'll just even add another layer of depth to that. Like, he's in his 30s now, or he's well into his career, right? Like, I'm sure he doesn't know how much longer he has to swim at this elite level. And they are certainly, him and his coach Tim Lane have certainly pushed the boundaries to what is possible in sprint freestyle and what it looks like to elongate your career and to train differently and stay in the sport at a very high level. He's an Olympic champion. He's a world champion. He's one of the best to ever do it in the 50 freestyle. But, he could still go 21.5 at the end of the summer this year, even though I think he's already been 21.5 this season. But it's like, you never know. And especially as you get older, I think it becomes a little more uncertain as to where your body's going to be at and what your body will allow you to do. And so I think he's going to be extra motivated, not only by these Enhanced Games and by seeing that 20.89, but I think he's just like, what better time than now? I think the Olympic year is a super stressful year. People put in a lot of hard work and then don't always see that payoff in placement, which he did. He won an Olympic gold medal, but also just in time, right? I don't think he went the time that he probably trained himself to go, especially after going 21.0 in 2023. And so I think this year, a lot less pressure, a lot less stress. He's already been a world champion before. So I think he'll come into Singapore feeling pretty easy, and maybe a lot of that training and hard work he put in last year will come through this year. I'm swimming 20.88 for Cam McAvoy. Fastest 50 free of all time. All right. That's our breakdown. Thanks so much, guys. Thanks for tuning in, everyone who listened.